Well, good evening, everyone. I almost said good morning, but that is obviously not the case. It is clearly evening time. I am so excited to be coming back, doing another Facebook Live on the Enneagram. And tonight, I am going to be talking to my good friend, Angela Sue Garvey, who is an Enneagram Type 4. And I know Angela because we have worked together as interns for Kathy Lip. I don't actually think I've ever met you face to face, Angela.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
No.
It's kind of crazy because we have this whole network of people we've never actually seen or met face to face. I'm pretty sure we'd still like each other, right? In person.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're already BFFs.
We're already BFFs.
Yeah, but it's been over a year now. It's amazing the way technology works right now. Yeah. I'm gonna share this really quickly that I'm going live with my friends so they can join in. I know there was a couple of people who had wanted to see. So give me 1 second, Lori.
Yeah, no problem. So if you are watching us today, we want to welcome you. There's a couple little tips about StreamYard. We go live through StreamYard. And so there should be like a link that you can click so that we can know that it's you leaving a comment or a great suggestion for us. And otherwise, all we see is that you're Facebook user, and I want to know who's asking all these great questions. So I am Lori Young. I am a certified Enneagram coach. I have lots of amazing friends who are all around the wheel on the Enneagram. So I kind of like to think that it's really fun to hang out and talk with people of different Enneagram types, to get to know them, to like hear their heart, to know how their brain works. And I think another important aspect of this is to like diss any stereotypes that people have about certain types. And I also have found that people are very curious. They think that there are aspects to their personality that are like weaknesses or really bad, or they're actually, once we kind of get to know them a little bit better, their greatest strengths. And I think that the Enneagram Type 4 is no exception. So I would just really love to dive in. We're going to get to know Angela throughout our time together. But the first thing I want to do is start with giving a type description for the Enneagram Type 4, because really that's the number that we're going to be diving into today. So the first thing to know is that they are called the romantic individualist. What this means is, hold on, I'm trying to get back to, hi Bethany, welcome. The romantic individualist has a core fear, hold on, I have notes, and so you would think that I would have them like completely organized, but nah, I don't roll
it's
that.
Okay, we'll just go with it.
We're going to roll with it. Okay, so Type 4s live primarily in their imagination and their feelings. Deep down, they have a hidden, idealized self or a vision of the person they passionately desire to become. This idealized self is incredibly creative, socially adept, and universally desired. They measure themselves against this idealized self and constantly feel like they come up short, feeling that they are somehow defective or flawed. They believe no one will truly love them, so they strive to become the ideal self to be loved. Type 4s bring this beautiful, unique depth and creativity to the world. They have an understanding of the world around them, and they embrace a wide range of emotions and experiences. One of your fears, though, is being inadequate or emotionally cut off, being plain or mundane or somehow like you're defective. but your core desire is to be unique and special and authentic, which is awesome for my authenticity over approval crew. You see yourself as deep and intellectual, emotional, accomplished, tasteful. You long for beauty, and you have a lovely aesthetic. And if you were a guy, I would say a good aesthetic, but you're not. You have a lovely aesthetic. But the message that your heart longs to hear is that you are seen for who you are, special and unique. So, Angela, now that I've rambled on about you while you're sitting right here, what parts of that like resonate with you? What sounds like you? What doesn't sound like you? How does that describe you?
Well, I think it's so much of what you said I can resonate with. And if I can go back really quickly and say that when I first heard about Enneagram, I mistyped myself because in some of the types, like I actually thought I was a 7, which is a totally, now I'm like, there's no way I'm a 7. But I was trying to do so many different things that I just felt pulled in different directions, which is kind of what you hear about 7s, that they just do everything and they're just on the go all the time. But I'm an introvert. I know some people don't think that I am, but I need my space. There was just so much about 7s that didn't line up. And so when I was sitting at the Red House, on a writing retreat there, I was talking to friends and they're like, I don't think you're a 7. I think you're mistyped. And Tanya Kubo just said, you're not a 7. You're just trying to do too much. And then I was like, well, going back to the drawing board, like, well, who am I? Like, what type do I fall under? And as soon as I read the 4, I just was like thinking, I don't know how I didn't see this before, because I do value, individuality, my emotions. I do have, I do feel a lot of shame in certain situations. And so, there was certain things, the core motivation of a 4 and the core fear of a 4 just really lined up with how I have seen myself.
Mm-hmm. And which is how people really kind of get to their true type. You can have similar behaviors to other types, right? You can do a lot. You can feel like you're always constantly on the go or trying new things, but that's a behavior and not necessarily a personality trait. And so the way to like really dig down and find out your true, each person really has one main type, is really to understand what your core fear is, and some of your core motivations, why you behave the way that you do, right? And that's funny because I have another good friend who is a type 4 and has mistyped herself as a type 7 for a long time for the same reason. I worked with her. I was in MOPS with her. She was our leader. She was like all over the place. And she just happens to be the kind of type 4 that deals with all of the emotional stuff very individually, very internally, and almost like pushes away, almost kind of pushes it away when it gets like, in order to like just deal with it by herself. So she's around a lot of people and feeling all the feels. She stays busy until she can get in her space and do that like
self-preservation.
Yes, exactly. So, but there are some that want to bring all the people into this like world with them to validate their uniqueness and validate their emotions and feelings. And so that's a type 4, but it's a slightly different kind of type 4.
Yeah,
that's individual subtype.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I have found that within the subtypes, I most resonate with the self-preservation 4. And, I am that way to where I do need to process things by myself. And I'm not sure if that's self-preservation too, or also, having a 5 wing. is just really needing time to myself to think about my thoughts, to ponder the world's problems, I guess. But I definitely need that. And I think as a 4, just some of the things that I've learned that have been really helpful is just being able to honor when I do need that time to myself and when I do need to step away to kind of reconfigure the situation. So if I'm getting pulled into a million different directions, I need some downtime and some time to reflect.
So would it be your natural tendency then to have a hard time asking for that time for yourself? Or do you kind of go into this place like, you don't want to hurt feelings, you don't want to push people away, you don't like voicing your opinion is a bad thing? Or do you not have a problem telling people when you need something?
I think it depends on the situation now, because here I'm married to a 5. And so my husband's really good about, like telling me what he needs as far as time to himself or time. And so I feel like I've gotten better about saying like, okay, I need time to myself. When I go back home and I'm around my family they're just a wild crew. Like they're just on 24/7. And so it's been harder for me because that's how I grew up, is just, people like coming in and out. Nobody knocks like in our house, like that. There's just like family coming and going all day long. And it can be overwhelming when I go back to visit because I'm not used to it anymore. So I do try to like really ask for space or to like tone it down when I'm there, because it's all at once,
Yeah. Well, you were also saying that there's oftentimes that you are in a crowded room and you feel all alone. So that's a unique experience for a type 4 as well. Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. I think we read in one of our coaching sessions that a 4 can be in a crowded room and feel alone. I think that one of the core motivations, whenever you hear the Enneagrams and you hear like the good stuff about all the numbers, you just want to be all that good stuff. And then you hear all the ugly stuff and you're like, oh, but that is like a very real part of the Enneagram, is like learning to accept your vulnerabilities and embracing like what they are. And so when I first heard that the core fear is envy, right?
Yeah, that's the core weakness. Yeah.
The core weakness. And so I think the weakness plays a role in feeling alone in a crowded room, because as a core weakness, when I heard the word envy, I thought, well, I'm not a jealous person. Like I don't look at other people and covet like what they have, or but then so I'm like thinking, well, jealousy versus envy, like how does envy apply? And then I realized like I'm not envious of other people in the sense that I want what they have, but I've noticed myself looking at what other people have and who they are and their good qualities, and then feeling like I don't have them. So I do this, like I'll see somebody who is more articulate than me and I'm just like, oh man, they're so articulate, and I like stumble, fuddle my words. Or I'll look at, somebody else and be like, oh my gosh, she's such a great mom, and I don't like my kids today. Like you just kind of like look at other people, and so in that way I am envious in the sense that when I see what I am missing when I look at the good qualities of other people. And so it's something that I've really had to work hard on, is appreciating that for them and then appreciating what I have for me.
Does that kind of go back to this feeling of like living up to this image of yourself as unique and authentic? Like you kind of have a picture of who you are. And then when you see other people with qualities that you would like to have, that there's this feeling of envy, like, oh, maybe that's not a quality I really have that I wish I did.
Like in the sense, if I looked at somebody and that I I would think that I need that to be an individual. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Or does any of that resonate or sound familiar to you? Like living up to your own image of yourself.
You know what? I feel like I've done a lot of work like on figuring out who I am. And so for me, I don't necessarily need to be different than, like, I don't feel like I am an individual. And so I can appreciate like my individual qualities for myself. I don't necessarily need to be set apart in the sense that like I have to be special from other people. Like I don't. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. So when I look at other people's, okay, like I'm going to think this through how I'm saying this because I'm not articulate, right? No, I'm just kidding.
You actually are very articulate.
But I think that I just look and one of the things that really I was listening to an Enneagram podcast and I think it was with Suzanne Stable. Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Suzanne Stabile.
Stabile. Mm-hmm. So I was listening to, and she was interviewing another 4, and this 4 gal said, I wish I could remember her name, but that she walks away from every conversation with her first thought, I did something wrong.
Oh.
And that I can definitely relate to. Like I am always second guessing, like, if I walk away from the conversation, like, oh, I didn't compliment this person on this, or I forgot to ask about their family, or I said this wrong thing. What if I offended them? And it is an immediate, like, as soon as she said that, and I heard that in the podcast, I realized that I do that. And it has actually, the acknowledgement and the realization that I do that opened me up to not do that anymore. I mean, not saying I never do that, but I can recognize when I am doing it and just being like, no, that was a fine conversation. My response was okay, you know? But I am always questioning how I show up or when I leave. I just thought that was an interesting, you know, I did something wrong. And I have found telling people that too, that a lot of people feel that way.
So you've had to learn how to check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? You've had to stop. You've learned how to listen for that like internal trigger and be like, no, you did great. How is it that you kind of came to that? Was that like just evolution, or I know you do a lot of internal work. How did that like come about for you to be able to recognize that?
Yeah, I think, well, and what you said too, like, I don't even have to like tell myself like, no, you did great. I just have to be like, it was okay. It's fine.
Like kind to yourself.
Yeah. Like no matter what, even if you did mess up, like it's fine. It's okay. You know?
Yeah.
But I think that I realized that it was one of those moments where you're looking at the Enneagram and you kind of, you do the work, you sit down and you kind of look at it, and with other work combined too, as we've talked about, but it's first realizing like what you see when you see other people, because when we see other people, we see reflections of ourselves. And so I think I came to that, but then when I heard that in the podcast, it was an immediate, like, I do that, and realizing that I could stop doing that.
Yeah. So let's talk for a minute about like some of the misperceptions or stereotypes about type 4, which I think often leads people to mistyping themselves. But some of the stereotypes I've heard are they're moody musicians, or they're moody artists. They're morose, they're down all the time, they're always sad, you know, they're always like the Eeyores. And that's just like, that obviously hasn't been my experience. What are some misperceptions that you had about type 4s even before you typed yourself as a 4, or did you?
Yeah.
Or do you know?
Okay, well, that's a really interesting point. And that is one of the reasons I didn't feel like I fit in 7s, because I'm like, 7s are just like fun. And I don't feel like a fun person. And so I didn't resonate with that because like, I think I have fun, but I just don't feel like I am like, we're going to have a party and invite, like I wouldn't be like the fun entertainer. But I think that part of the self-preservation is not being moody because I can acclimate to my surroundings. And I think the other types are more moody than the self-pres, or, of the 3 subtypes of 4. So of that, I am the least moody in the sense of how I display my emotions. But I don't feel very animated in certain social situations. And so I can listen to a conversation and feel like I'm observing. But I am highly conscious, like when I'm with family or friends or just in a group setting, I'm so interested and fascinated. And I'm watching and I'm observing and I'm, thinking about the conversation. I don't necessarily I'm not always like the person who's laughing. Like I probably seem more muted than,
okay.
So I have to watch that too, because I feel a little insecure about that. Just being a little bit.
Like your facial expressions and your mannerisms might be like more still or more calm, instead of like, well, now we're going to stereotype a 7, which isn't fair. But I think 7s can handle it. I feel like they can handle it. That they are animated and their faces always light up and they're always, kind of bouncing around the room. And yeah, well, that's been my experience with you personally, is that I always have the experience with you that you're listening intently. And I never feel like when I'm in conversation with you that you're bored or that you're like zoning off into your own space. I always really have the experience of being heard and understood. You're the person that I would go to if I am like really having some emotional thing, right? Because I know that you can like sit in that place and you would be the friend that would say, tell me more. Like I'd be crying and I would be like so sad and upset. And I know you would just lean in and you would just say like, tell me more. Like, tell me more about how that feels. And I don't think that a lot of type 4s know, but that's your superpower. Not a lot of people can do that.
Yes, I do acknowledge like that is something I think I have gotten better at as I've realized. But I do think like, and I'm going, I'm in a master's program to become a marriage and family therapist. But I do really value being able to sit with people in their dark moments or when they're struggling. And I like hearing and relating to what they're going through and, just being there. And I haven't always done it great in the past, but I think that's something that I enjoy doing because I feel like I do it well. And yeah, I think that is something, just being able to sit with people when they're hurting. I appreciate that. Recognize that as a 4 quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that the other piece to that is that you're not afraid of the hard feelings. You're not afraid of fear or sadness or grief or depression. You're not afraid of that. There are other types on the Enneagram who are terrified of that stuff. Like, whoa, you've just come with me. Like, don't come at me with an emotion. Like, tell me how we're going to fix it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why like 4s, I always laugh because like Taylor Swift is a 4,
Oh,
and you hear her songs, you hear like all the emotion that comes out in some of the like different 4s and their creativity. And that lends to like the type of book that I wrote. I wrote a book about a very personal experience that I had. And it's something that most people wouldn't share about, but I felt like it was I am just okay with putting it out there. And I know that some of the topics make people uncomfortable, and not just on the content level, but just, I know not everybody can sit in their emotions in the same way.
Your book was so fantastic for me because we have some similar experiences, and you were able to articulate some of those things and some of the hard things that happened, like in relationships with people, in relationship with the church, and how you like picked up and dealt with it. But you were able to articulate it in a way that I really felt like, oh yeah, that's like, I'm not alone. And it feels so good to have someone who can relate, and be right there with me. And so Bethany just dropped a link. It's Tiny Homes and Tummy Tucks, a spiritual downsizing. And I got to tell you, the book is delightful. So it's so good. So if you're looking for a great read, my friend, I think I'm pointing to the right person.
I think that's the right direction. I don't know.
I'm like an amazing author, so you have to go pick up her book.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked a little bit about the strengths. I think the other like kind of superpower strength of the type 4 is for those of us like a type 9, is legit frustrating for me to know what I want, to know what my opinion is. I've been on this journey the last few days, like, what is my 5-year plan? What do I want? I have no idea. And it feels terribly inauthentic to not be able to have the answer to what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I don't know. I legit don't know. It's super frustrating. But the type 4, it's less about what you want, but I think we have a lot to learn about authenticity from a type 4. And I've seen you kind of rumble in some hard spaces around, our relationship with the church, around issues of faith and issues of the church. And you rumble in these really hard places, but you are always authentically you. You always bring like your unique self to the table. And I think it's so powerful for us to watch that and see that and really learn from that, actually. Did you freeze up? I think my friend froze up. I thought she was listening so intently. Maybe she'll come back. She'll pop back in. Well, we can move on and talk about the growth paths of the type 4. So the type 4 is connected, and their areas of growth are to the type 1. The type 1 is called the moral perfectionist, and they kind of have a voice. They kind of have like an inner critic that is kind of tells the difference between good and bad. That's good, that's bad. Well, in growth, the type 4 goes to or in health, the type 4 goes to the type 1. So we're just talking about the arrows. Okay. Talking about the healthy path or the growth path that goes to the Enneagram Type 1, which is the moral perfectionist. So tell me a little bit about that experience for you, being a healthy Type 4.
Yeah, I think that when I've noticed that I do, like, I don't consider myself a perfectionist in the sense that I need to line everything up. But I do notice that when I take time to really, to write out my thoughts, write out the list, like kind of get some sort of organization, I really am doing better. And when I am not doing that, when I'm not in that space of like crossing my T's, dotting my I's, and really like keeping it together, I do move into the Enneagram 2, where I'm trying to help, like I turn outward. So if I can't I will like try to help other people, or I'll be more focused on like my kids than normal, like just kind of like look outward to do that. One of the things that you had asked me before my internet cut out, I'm sorry.
We're really happy to have you back.
Yeah.
I thought you were listening very intently.
yeah, I was. It's just, I hope I didn't freeze in an awkward facial expression.
No, you were lovely.
But I was going to say that if I come off authentic or truly myself, I would say I have done a lot of like internal work just on me and my history. And one of the things that I had heard that has shaped kind of who I try to be in the world is not, when you think about the question, what do you want to do in the world? I heard someone say, well, who do you want to be? So it's not so much what do you want to do? It's like, who do you want to be as a person? Because no matter what you do, everywhere you go, there you are. And so if you are the person that you want to be, and I feel like, I'm not sure if this is a for thing or it probably is, but if it's a for thing or if it's just me, is that I feel like because of my experiences in life, I have had to hide parts of my feelings or my thoughts and not show myself to the world fully because I would, like get in trouble, I guess. Just, I've always felt like I've had to hide parts of myself. And so I have done a lot of work to be the same person in private that I am in public, to always say what I'm thinking. And, and so it's really important for when people like will see me out there, if I'm sharing something private, like in a book or whatever, it's because I'm tired of hiding as a person, and I want to be the same person all the way around, because I hate that I feel like I've hidden for too long, waiting for somebody to say it's okay.
Which is how you came to lean a lot more into the self-preservation subtype, because that's how you preserved yourself, was to kind of hide those parts of yourself. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Wow. Yeah. It also kind of illuminates for me just the kind of busyness, right? When you're kind of busy trying to hide some of that stuff, you stay busy, and so other people don't see what's really going on inside.
Yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm. Well, what one of the healthy paths. So if we're gonna like switch gears just a little bit, but to get back to just the area of growth, an area that, like, if you're a type 4 and you're listening to this and you want to know, like, what good is the Enneagram for me, and knowing that I'm a type 4, it's that we all have areas of our life that, yes, we read the description, the things that stick out in bold to us are all of the weaknesses and all of the hard parts and all of the things that we don't want to look at. Understanding all of that, integrating all of that, like really being okay with the things that we would consider weaknesses, just helps us to be healthier. And the growth path, or the healthy path for a type 1, is that you can become more emotionally balanced, objective, and principled. I have definitely seen that with you. You stand by your principles. You have very strong opinions. You come by those opinions honestly from hard life experience. And you really do stand by them in a really authentic way. A type 4 can embrace mundane tasks as opportunities. That sounds boring. To be a good steward and to be responsible and organized. Is that a thing that type 4s have a hard time being organized? And
you know what? I don't know if I'm organized because I work really hard to be organized, or if I feel like I have to be organized like, they say that there's people who are creative when everything's in chaos. Well, I'm most creative when things are in order.
Oh, that's super helpful.
Yeah. So I do thrive in organization.
Well, that's a type 1 trait that 4s have access to, is to really embrace this part of them that can be organized. It doesn't have to be like chaotic, to be creative. And I really love that. Well, you do have to be organized. Like, your life gets an upheaval from time to time. Like, COVID kind of sent you in a very different direction than you thought you would go into.
Yeah. Well, first, we're a military family, so we move every few years. And recently I've moved a lot. And so in August of 2019, we arrived in the Dominican Republic, and I just thought I was going to stay put. And I was excited to be in one place for like 3 years. And but COVID happened. And so me and my boys had to go to the States, and that was unexpected. And I think, I'm still trying to figure out like how all of these changes, like how I've internalized a lot of the changes, because I think oftentimes things happen so quickly that it's hard, like in my life, things have happened. And so, you keep soldiering on as the self-pres, you soldier on and you keep going. And so that reflection is not there sometimes. And when the reflection is not there, I can feel it. Like that's where I need that time to process, like things that have happened, or things that I'm, so I noticed that. And I noticed it actually, when we got here, after moving, and there was just a couple other like life situations in between the last couple of moves, that I didn't get to process. And so I was really excited to have that time. And then I didn't get that time because we had to move again, And so I have, since I've been back, it's been really nice to kind of sit down and do a lot of that work. That, it might not seem like much. Like, I feel like people who work on self-preservation, it's you soldier on, you do the next thing, you keep going because life has to go on. And so I think that you miss a lot of opportunities for healing and growing in health if you don't stop and do those things. Yeah,
I agree. And that takes a deal, like a good deal of self-awareness, and like getting yourself to a healthier place, right? Again, to like be able to ask for what you need.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a type 4 who is kind of wanting to know a little bit more about themselves, who like what are some things that you have struggled with in the past that as you've gotten healthier been like, oh, that was it, I was 4ing so hard.
Yeah, I was 4ing. Well, I have really appreciated, we've done a couple of Enneagram coaching sessions, which I wasn't really sure what to expect from the coaching sessions, but I have found them so helpful. I have listened to some different Enneagram podcasts, and I've read a couple of Enneagram books.
Do you have a favorite?
So The Road Back to You was probably the easiest one, like the how-to, that I think is a good starting point. And, I think that for me, it was very helpful. It was very helpful to go in and learn a little bit about the other types. And, and try to like figure out who's in your circle and what type they are, because to me, the relationship aspect of the Enneagram has been the most fascinating. As far as figuring out, different types. I know we have talked about different types and how my type relates to a type 2 or relates to a type 8. 4s really struggle with 8s. And eights really struggle with fours. And once I realized that, like, a ton of my relationships just all of a sudden kind of made sense. Like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm seeing in this relationship. And I would say that was probably one of the most eye-opening. And if you're in if you have a group of friends and one of them, like, so I have an 8 and one of them is a 4, or I'm the 4. There's an 8 and a 2. It's very fascinating to see how the 8 responds to the 4 and then the 2 tries to respond to both. And and I said, like, I am, my husband, I think he's an Enneagram 5. And so it's just interesting to read the relationship and how they work together. It's just a good tool to kind of see how you might be looking through life and how you see other people. Because once I realized, like, the 8's motivation is on being silenced, right? What's their core, or not their motivation, their fear. Their fear is on...
their fear is betrayal.
Their fear is betrayal. And some 8's can be more aggressive. And
control is kind of their central theme. As long as I can control all the things, then I won't be betrayed. Yeah.
Yes. And is this a 4 thing? I don't like aggressive people. Like, I don't do well in those situations where people are very aggressive. I do think that that I have done the self-preservation thing around there, so I can be around anybody. I just don't tend to like aggression in that way. And so that has been harder for me too.
Well, and what's interesting about a type 8 is that for them, conflict is connection. So they are not afraid. In fact, they rumble in these hard conversations because to them, they're making a connection. They're deepening their relationship. They see it as like a good thing. And it's interesting because as a type 9, I feel like you do a lot of the time, but I hate conflict. I see it as people trying to push me away, and I push conflict away as hard and fast as I can, or I just run. I have no problem like hiding under the covers if somebody wants to have conflict, but that then leaves the 8 feeling like, well, what happened? We were just becoming friends. I'm like, ooh, you're weird. You're not. A type 8, I promise you're not weird. That's a very normal thing for them. But for me, that sense of like somebody coming at me with a strong opinion and wanting to have this like debate as a way to connect with me feels so foreign to me.
Yeah. And I can definitely see that for 9s. And I'm not saying this to bash on 8s, because I have some 8s friends that I love. And to me, the distinction is, and this is one of the things that is super important in Enneagram, is, are they a healthy 8? Or are they an unhealthy 8? And it's very easy for me, because I am not that number, to look in and be like, unhealthy, healthy. Okay, I get it. But then I also wonder too, like, for my number, like, what is someone looking into me and going healthy, unhealthy, like, and just able to kind of see? It's harder to see for yourself. But so when I think about my friends who are 8s, in fact, I was having a conversation with one of them because I was talking to her about how much I struggle with, like, another podcast I was listening to talked about like 8s. So the 2 gals who do like the funny Enneagram videos,
Leanne and Michelle. Does that sound right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. One's a 4, and I think the other one's an 8, right?
Oh, I think possibly.
So
I catch like glimpses, but I don't know much about them.
Yeah. So the gal who was an 8 was saying that, as she was growing up, she had a lot of anger. And so her dad actually had to take her aside and really teach her how to process through that anger. And I think that through all the Enneagram numbers, you have to be able to see, like, what do you need to learn to, like, so if 8, it's processing that or learning, but for me, it would be learning not to internalize everything, and not look at the whole world and measure yourself up against not to,
right.
Because it can be so draining. So I think that is one of the most valuable things about learning the Enneagram as a tool in your life, is to be able to see how you might be looking at yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maggie Jagger, she's a friend of mine, such a good friend. She is, Maggie, I'm calling you out. I hope you don't mind. But she's a type 3, and her middle name is Efficiency. Like, she loves spreadsheets, and that's how she rolls, right? She can adapt to any corporate or business environment. She's absolutely amazing. But she's asking, what's the 4? Maggie, the 4, and I guess you have to go back and watch it now. The 4 is the romantic individualist. And so I am here talking to my friend Angela Sue, who is an Enneagram Type 4, and we've had a great conversation about what it's like to be in her brain. Maggie says spreadsheets are her happy place. Maggie, it's the reason is because 3s hate emotion. So it's so weird how the 2 numbers are right next to each other, like the 8 and the 9. The 8 loves conflict. The 9s hate it with a passion. The 4s really do enjoy and love emotion. 3s hate it with a passion. Maggie doesn't like feelings, but she's also like someone who, when she trusts you, can get to that place. So, well, it's okay, Maggie. It's fine. It's okay that you're late. It's okay. Anyway, so let's move on. If you are watching and you would like to learn more about the Enneagram, you don't know your Enneagram number, I do have a test. It is incredibly accurate. It also goes along with a typing session by me, so we can kind of talk through your results. So if you're interested in learning more and want to get a link to the test, just put test in the comments, drop test in the comments. If you know your Enneagram number and you would like to know more about coaching, drop coaching in the comments, and I will be happy to get in touch with you offline in a private message, and we can talk more about what coaching would be like. So we have put the link to Angela's book in the comments. It is a lovely read, Tiny Homes and Tummy Tucks. And I highly recommend it. It's just you're just such a good writer. You have such a good way of explaining all the things. And I think that's it. Do you have any last thoughts that you want to leave our friends, other Type 4 friends, with?
Yeah. So I would just say there's nothing wrong with this. And when we walk away from a conversation, it's okay. It happened the way it was supposed to happen. We're fine. And I really, really have appreciated the Enneagram one-on-one coaching, because I have felt that I wasn't sure what that was going to be like, but it has been so much information and just a time to reflect. So I really appreciate that. And I would highly encourage anybody to sign up for a coaching session with you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We have a few more to go, so there's a lot more to discover about your cute little self. One last thing, I want to give a shout out to our friend Bethany Howard, who is also an intern with Kathy Lipp, and it shows because Kathy puts amazing people on her team, but Bethany has been taking notes. She has been dropping links. She's been keeping everyone updated. And I just want to thank her, because it kind of takes a little extra energy to be the note taker on a Facebook Live. So thank you, Bethany. We totally adore you.
Yes, thanks, Bethany.
And thank you, Maggie. Maggie also said that I just had to put it up here. Oh, I love you so much. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. We're so grateful that you could join us today. And thank you, Angela. And best of luck to you as your ministry progresses. It's all pretty exciting. So
thanks for having me.
Thank you all so much. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Okay.